What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia, ticker symbol NVDA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of tomorrow's trading day, Wednesday, February 7th. Well, Nvidia stock here today actually hit an all-time high immediately on the open of pre-market, and then faded really the majority of the rest of the day here, finishing down about 11 points per share. A small red day for Nvidia, 1.6% down. What I want to start with here on the 1 minute chart is just point out to you guys, we had a relatively clean intraday scalp potential setup forming here on Nvidia. I mean, really a beautiful setup as we saw that bottom level flatten out. But then what happened was this channel just tightened down too much. Things got sloppy, huge time gap in between. So nothing here for me today on Nvidia intraday. By the way, if you guys want to get my intraday scalp setup alerts, they're my personal scalp setup alerts, or swing trade setup alerts, unusual options activity every single day. Maybe even potentially a platinum one-on-one for some more one-on-one support. Go ahead and come join our group at that link in the pinned comment. Let's take a look now at the 5 minute chart and look at volume here. Okay, this is what I really want to look at today. We can see that, volume immediately off the open where we hit that all-time high of 709.26. Very, very small volume. Okay, so we have to take that all-time high with a grain of salt. And the volume immediately off the open, though it was a relatively small, at least comparatively speaking, red candle, big volume on that candle. Of course, that's comparatively speaking to Nvidia's typical volatility. Of course, we've seen bigger, right? But a lot of what this is telling me here today, Nvidia, at least today, just wasn't quite ready to claim 700 and hang out there with a level of comfort during regular trading hours. All right, let's zoom out now and take a look at the 30-minute chart. And you can see that idea gets reinforced here when we zoom out. You can see that $700 a share, we really haven't spent any time above there in regular trading hours. So, that's going to be a level that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on, at least once we get out to the daily chart. But for now, we're on the 30-minute, so we have to stay contextual because we're always looking at multiple time frames, ideally. So listen here, this white line, that's of course the 50-period moving average. That gray line down there, that's the 200-period moving average. You can see right now we're about 2% away on the 30-minute from making a retest to the upside of that 50-period. To the downside, we're looking at approximately 3.75% to the downside. So look here, if you're a bull watching the 30-minute chart on Nvidia, which I think everyone should be in addition to all the other time frames. Again, always watching multiple time frames to get the best, most contextual picture of the psychology of what's actually going on here. If you're a bull, before we can even think about $700 a share here on the 30-minute, we need to think about that 50-period. So ideally, from a bullish perspective, I know a 2% day is not a tiny day, but we've seen way more on Nvidia as of late. Reclaim that 50-period is the number one concern if you're a bull looking at the 30-minute chart. If you're a bear and we see a test, obviously you'd like to see that reject hard, but really, I know it's nearly 4% away, but bears have your sights set on the 30-minute down at that 200 period. Okay, and if you're a bull and we see a retest of that, obviously you'd prefer to see that hold as a support level as strong as possible, considering it's just getting up to that 650 area, which could also potentially add a level of psychological support potentially. All right. Now, let's take a look at the 4-hour. Okay, we can see here, actually, let's zoom out a little bit more. We can see here that this 50 period here, that white line just getting above that technical region of 630 a share, currently sitting right about 635. That's a little bit of a move away, okay, but if we look at from an actual percent standpoint here, that's about 5.6% away. Now, listen, we've seen days on Nvidia where that has occurred, but, that being over 5% away, on the 4-hour, I'm keeping an eye on it, certainly, if we end up seeing a relatively larger down day on Nvidia as a potential area of like a safety net, right, psychologically speaking. But really what I'm watching on the 4-hour in particular, since this all-time high, I'm going to look more at the daily chart on that. I want to see this 50 period on the 4-hour get upside as quickly as possible. Let's get some feet underneath where the stock currently is. This is one of those problems. When you see stocks have massive upside moves, yeah, it's great. It looks great in your portfolio. You're making a bunch of money, okay? But the problem is, from a comfort level, all of these psychological self-fulfilling areas of potential safety net, right? These support levels, they take their time catching up. And the bears, when they see those big gaps between the stock price and the obvious levels of potential support, they're loving that, okay? They like watching the stock trade on what a lot of people might describe as thin air. So if you're a bull, you're looking for those things to move upside as quickly as possible. Now, let's start getting the full story here by looking at the daily, okay? Now, this one isn't, it's really not going to show us the real high, because the real high was so early in pre-market that all we're going to get here is 697.54. And listen, to be honest with you guys, that real high of 709 and some change, to me, I can't really consider that. I understand technically speaking that's the highest Nvidia has ever traded, okay? But I can't consider that the high right now because it was pre-market, immediately off the open, and on such tiny volume that for me right now, I am just looking at $700 a share because it is clearly acting as a psychological area. And listen, a reclaim, or more so just a claim in regular trading hours of $700 a share and claiming that area as a potential area of support, that would be incredibly encouraging to a lot of bulls and incredibly discouraging to a lot of bears. Now look here, if you're bearish on Nvidia right now, same thing's on your mind. $700 a share is your enemy, and that psychological barrier is your best friend. You want us to fade as hard as possible away from $700 a share. You want the whole market on as much volume as we could possibly get if you're a bear, saying we're not ready for $700 a share on Nvidia. That's what you're looking for if you're bearish on Nvidia right now. Pretty simple here on the daily chart. No matter which side you're on, 700 is such a big level that when we're looking at the daily in particular, it kind of trumps everything. Let's now take a look at the chain. Let's see what the options trader's bias is as we head into tomorrow, and this is weighted massively. Take a look at this here. This is relatively uncommon on Nvidia to see this much of a weighted chain. 1.625 million total contracts traded. That's a great sample size. Plenty of data here. Plenty of activity to get good data. 1.07 million calls. 550,000 puts. We are seeing just about double the amount of calls compared to puts here on Nvidia today, with over 1.6 million total contracts traded. That is an absurd level of bias here in the chain. Now, something that we do need to look at here is going to be that short-term speculation delta range of 0 to 20. 392,000 calls, 252,000 puts. The short-term speculators are also leaning pretty heavily to the bullish side, which is interesting. But again, always make sure your risk is managed. Okay, this is one factor of many, and the options traders, while they are leaning heavily bullish today, they can, of course, be wrong. Listen, before you head out, if you wouldn't mind, leave a comment. Let me know what stock or stocks, even if it is just more Nvidia, you'd like to see me cover here on the channel in the near future. That feedback helps out a ton, and I'll see you in the next one.